in this series of stories, we look at the lives of 4 great Mahasiddhas. And specifically, we look at a negative emotion and we travel the line from the negative emotion to the wisdom. We hope that you enjoy the story as much as we did creating it. Of course, these stories are based in fact, and they are well researched to make sure that the facts are true. Today's story is about the epic tale of Matseyendra. For this story, we've set it in the Kashmir, in the Himalayas, and it's a story that follows a teacher and a student. So as the first rays of the morning sun warm the garden above the river, a young yogi prepared an area of grass large enough for 2 people to practice their asana. Pausing for a moment, he enjoyed the smells of the river, the grass, the earth, and the forest with his first deep inhale of the day. The river was lazy and winding down below, but not far away it was a rushing torrent, swollen by the late spring snowmelt. Behind him to the north rose the majestic snow-capped mountains of the Himalayas. It was the source of the fresh water flowing below him. Filled with a youthful longing for adventure, he considered what it would be like to travel the river from the headwaters to the sea. Then taking a deep inhale, he reveled in the beauty of the early morning sun and the fresh, warm breeze wafting up the valley. Now hearing the soft footfall of his teacher's approach on the path behind him, he considered how he might distract her away from his morning's asana practice. He wasn't keen to start just yet, engaged as he was in the pleasurable sensations of the early morning. Then turning to greet her, he spoke, "Good morning, teacher. You wouldn't believe the strange story I overheard in the village yesterday." He paused for a moment, just gauging her response, then feeling a little uneasy in the stillness of her penetrating gaze, he continued. "It was really strange. It was the strangest story about a guy who lived inside the belly of a whale. They say he's the father of Hatha Yoga." The teacher, utterly still, studied him in silence. Before she spoke, she considered the time and the youth's motivation. Finally, she simply said, "Sit, let's begin." With a sigh, he sat. And following her precise instructions, he folded his left foot towards his right buttock and took his right foot and placed it on the ground to the outside of his left knee. Sit up straight. Place your right hand at your back, near your spine. Now hook your left elbow over your right knee. Take a twist at the level of your heart and look over your right shoulder. Try to find space in the pose as you lengthen the spine upwards on an inhale, she said, and try to relax into the pose and twist deeper on the exhale. Feeling a little cocky, the young yogi took a bind in the pose, something he rarely did during his first practice of the morning. The pose felt tight and constricting, with his legs squished up against his belly and chest. But his pride had caught him out, so despite his discomfort, he stayed locked in the pose, thinking, I can wait it out. It's just 5 rounds of breathing here. She never makes me hold a pose for more than 5 rounds. He rolled his eyes as the count of 5 breaths came and went, and she did not release him from the bind. Finally, her words penetrated his discomfort. He heard her say, this pose is called Matseyendra. It is the namesake of the yogi who lived inside the belly of the whale. Matsya means fish, and Indra means king. So it's king of fishes pose. Now, this famous yogi had many names. Matseyendra was one. Matsyendranath is another. Minanatha is one, and Minapa another. Some even say they think he went by the name Luipa. She continued to speak, and the youth began to worry that she would keep him twisted up like a pretzel. For a long, long time, he felt punished. And she said to him, listen, yogi, you have been practicing for only a few months, and already you are bored. And now you're looking for something different. You're always seeking happiness in something outside of you. I remember how eager you were when it was all fresh and new. Where has your eagerness gone? You loved these morning sessions. Well, you're not unique. You're no different than anyone else. This is the way it has been since the beginning of time. The mind always seeks in the outer world that which appears fresh and new and exciting. It strives for the impossible. What it wants cannot be found outside. Well then, Matsyendra's story and Matseyendrasana is perfect for you today. Just as you heard in the village, Matseyendra is famous for refreshing the practice of yoga. Human history follows cycles of development and decay. There are great cycles of civilization and mini cycles of personal growth and withdrawal. Wagging a finger at him, she said, you have entered the withdrawal phase of learning. Stuck in the bind he so proudly took a few minutes ago and feeling miserable. Mentally, he begged her to release him. He could barely focus on her words. His mind was so upset by what was happening in his body. She's right, he thought. I like things when they feel good, and I can hardly stand this slight discomfort right now. With that thought, though, a sense of ease came into his body. He noted that ease and thought about the conundrum he was in. He had a mind that wanted to escape the pain of his body, yet he knew it was impossible for his mind, something that has no physicality, to experience pain or discomfort. So why was he straining to get away? Just a few days ago, he debated the idea with a few of his good friends, recalling the point that the mind is not made of the same stuff as the body. And that being true, he wondered how it was possible that his mind appeared to feel pain at this moment. This discomfort is in my body, yet it's my mind that wants to escape. That's interesting. When I had that thought, my body shifted to a more profound kind of relaxation in the pose. Then he thought, Sthira Sukham. This is comfort and stability. This is asana. With that mental space available to him, now he began to become curious about his teacher's words. What does this pose have to do with Matseyendra? And what does it mean to refresh one's practice? And what the heck does it mean to live in the belly of a whale? Taking a quick break from the story, his teacher said, "You may now release the bind and take the twist on the opposite side." He was relieved to be free. He took a big inhale and relaxed as the air left his lungs on a whoosh. Next, she briefly instructed him to twist his arms and legs into a pretzel on the opposite side. Then, satisfied with his alignment, she returned to her story. Yes, it's true, Matseyendra is the father of Hatha Yoga, the first teacher of this lineage. He was born somewhere between the 7th and the 12th centuries in India. We don't know the exact location. However, it appears he was well known by a Nepali king whose name was Narendra Deva. He was from the Lichavi dynasty. They say that this king actually brought Matseyendra to Nepal from his home in India. And Matseyendra became quite famous all throughout Nepal. Some say that Matseyendra lived for over 500 centuries. Some authors tell us that he had the power to transfer his mind to the body of other beings. Indeed, the pose that is his namesake is meant to increase the health and vitality of the body. So, eyeing her student fiercely, she said, "Understand this. The story you're about to hear is not a factual historical account of Matseyendra's life. Instead, it's the story of his practice and realizations. It's the example he set for your practice. It's about the gifts that he left for us to discover." Now, some of the great myths tell us that Matseyendra was a fisherman swallowed by a whale. Others say he was born when the planets were misaligned under an evil sign, and so his parents tossed him in the ocean, where he was swallowed by a whale. And he lived in that darkness for years. It was a darkness within a greater darkness. Was he a real person? Of course. The ocean, the darkness, and the ominous signs are all metaphors for the time in which he lived, which of course continues up to present day. In times like these, when we are overcome by the temptations of the senses, the vitality of our body starts leaking away. So too does the brilliance of our minds begin to fade. Now, most people, they have no interest in practicing the yamas and niyamas or asana or any of the other great limbs of yoga. Certainly, they have no interest in the 9th limb, Navanga. In these times, the world's people misunderstand everything so completely that they think the exact opposite, the wrong way. We believe good things can come from bad. Stealing brings wealth, or killing brings health. We are helplessly locked in a cycle of good things happening and then bad things happening. We've got no control over them. We are just spinning around again and again and again in this cycle. We don't know that there's a different way. We are all like fish who swim in the ocean. We don't know what it is to be wet because wet can only be known when there is something to compare it to, like dry. So we swim in the ocean of pain, the pain of misunderstanding, until we come to know there's something different. Freedom from pain. The teacher, focusing on her student, once again said, here's how you can think about this as you go deeper in your twist. Right now, you are looking into a world that is usually unknown to you. What is behind you? Whenever you look behind yourself in a twist, shine your insight into the unknown. In this way, you bring light into darkness and darkness into light. Ask yourself, what am I misunderstanding right now? And how is that causing me pain? Yogi, reflect on your thoughts this morning. As yogis, we must learn to feel the inner winds as they shift with our thoughts. When did your inner wind shift from wanting to not wanting this morning? Learn to catch the shift. Learn to control it. Now focus on the twist. Your physical body is wringing out the subtle left-hand channel. You feel good if you're thinking correctly about me right now. It is possible to inject a little wisdom into the central channel. If you're not thinking correctly, there is a subtle misunderstanding about liking me, the yogi, and that channel is blowing up. It is tying the knot at the twist at the Anahata chakra stronger. This morning you thought, I feel good because the warmth, the smells, and the sights, that's what made me feel good. Attaching the thought feel good to the warmth and the sunlight, thinking that the I feel good came from them, meant you were willing to do something wrong to keep them. You were ready to distract me so you could continue with the experience. Listen closely. There is no good feeling coming from the warmth in the sunlight. It's a lie. This is the darkness of the age that we live in. This is the lie. This lie is perpetuated every millisecond of our day. The enjoyment never came from something outside of you. You could never hold on to a moment you enjoyed by distracting me. Pointing her finger at me, she said fiercely, when you think about me and I want or I don't want, the wrong way, the dark way, the winds are flowing in the left channel. Take the twist deeper, she instructed. What do you feel? Sometimes emotions are easier to catch than thoughts. At that exact moment, the youth felt a flash of anger rise up and direct itself to his teacher. She said, Ah, you have shifted to the right channel, the sun channel, haven't you? You are angry at me. Now I'm the object, the cause of your pain, aren't I? You blame me for your discomfort, the discomfort that you're feeling right now, don't you? Let me ask you this. Was it my pride that told you to take the bind? At first, he was embarrassed that his teacher seemed to have read his thoughts. She read them so clearly that he felt flustered, but he did as she directed, focusing intensely, trying to feel his inner winds. He thought he felt a shift. It happened at the very moment he stopped focusing on feeling embarrassed. And the anger that I don't like, I want to get away from her, it's all her fault, to the comfort of simply being present, watching for the movement of his inner winds. His teacher uttered a, pretty good. Now let's continue with our story. At that time, a student approached a great master with respect and begged for the instructions on the practice of the profound instructions of the inner winds. Now she begged and begged, please, master, please teach me about this deep language of the inner winds and movements. The movements of the inner winds, please teach me those profound instructions, she asked 3 times. Relenting, he finally spoke. Well, I can't just teach you any old place. We must go somewhere private, where I can give you this precious knowledge. So the student searched the world for the perfect private place. She found it deep in the ocean, but still at a depth where the sunlight caught the colors of the coral and the fish. So she built her teacher a beautiful home under the sea. It was a place of dappled sunlight and shadows mixing with the red and white coral. These beautiful reefs, a place where fronds of seagrass swayed lazily to the rhythm of the waves far above, and where schools of tiny fish, flashing hues the color of jewels, darted about finding shelter amid the coral and the fronds. Above all, it was a glorious, silent, private place worthy of teaching the profound practice of the inner movements. And so together they went down into these depths. Pausing her story for a moment, the teacher instructed the yogi, unwind the twist once again and take it in the opposite direction. As the youth followed her instructions, she stated, I want to make a point here. Other than the obvious fact that Matseyendra lived inside the whale inside the ocean, why do you suppose that the master and student chose the ocean for their secret teaching? The youth considered for a moment and then spoke aloud. Well, if the ocean is the place of misunderstanding and pain, they kind of have to go where the teaching is needed the most, right? So maybe it means that these two didn't live in the ocean of darkness and pain, but they could enter into it. Sort of like saying that someone can be in the world, but not of the world. The yogi looked around to the teacher, checking to see if he might be correct. Now noting the slight smile on her face and the little snort she made, he guessed that he was. His teacher continued the story, which, by the way, he was beginning to enjoy immensely. Now the whale who had swallowed Matseyendra, that whale was resting nearby to the place of the teaching, and not a single movement was made to betray its location in all the time the student was building the perfect place to hold the teaching. And in the belly of the whale, Matseyendra too enjoyed freedom from the constant moving turmoil generated by the whale as it swam and fed. It was a time of profound peace and stability for him. Then, as the master began to teach, Matseyendra, inside the whale, focused intently. Every single word was music to his ears. What bliss after so much turmoil and strife. Oh, he was so grateful to hear such wise words. He absorbed and reviewed every detail. Then he tried to practice it, just as he heard the master teach it. Now, the master was no fool. He knew there was a spy in their private garden. He felt Matseyendra's presence long before he began to teach. He had already probed Matseyendra's mind. He was satisfied that this was a person worthy of his teachings. He also knew that Matseyendra would make good use of what he learned from him. So it's no accident that Matseyendra was in the very place chosen for this teaching. He was propelled by his seeds, his karma, to be there, and he was ready to hear these profound teachings. Well, young yogi, she asked, what comfort can we take in this idea? The youth responded with, I guess we can take comfort in the idea that if we just plant the right seeds, we don't have to worry. That we'll be in the right place at the right time and for the right teaching to come to us. Good, she affirmed. It's interesting, don't you think, that the master never bothered to try and release Matseyendra from his prison. Why do you suppose that was? She asked. An answer immediately popped into the yogi's mind. Well, perhaps like being released from the belly of the whale was something that only Matseyendra could do for himself. Maybe you're right, she said. Then she continued to probe. And why do you suppose that it took 12 long years of practice before Matseyendra was released? Well, I suppose 12 years could be like a magic number of years that is required to attain those great yogic powers. Okay, another interesting question, and this one bothers me a lot. What about this metaphor, living in the belly of a whale, in the pitch darkness? It was pitch dark in there. What do you think that darkness refers to here? Now he contemplated a moment and said, well, maybe the darkness at this point in the story, it doesn't refer to the darkness of the ignorance at the beginning of the story, right? So maybe the idea of being inside a whale it's sort of like the idea of this one. It's like the idea of withdrawing from the world to go deep inside our own minds. Pretty good, she said. That's very true. once we find an authentic practice, we know we need to center on it. And we cannot allow ourselves to be distracted by outer things. Maybe it also refers to the fact that when we begin a practice, we are in total darkness about the outcome. Like we have no idea what the future holds for us. We tested what the teacher taught us, and we tested the teacher, so we know that it works right now. But we're in the dark about whether it will continue to work and what exactly will happen. We have no idea what greatness or not that we might attain as a yogi using these practices. So we found a teacher that we can trust because we've informed ourselves about them. We know that they are authentic and that what they teach is true. So we trust their advice and we follow their instructions every day. The teacher broke her reflections to release the yogi from his twist. He heaved a big sigh and enjoyed a moment's freedom, noting his happy frame of mind. Then, instead of telling him to move into the twist on the opposite side, she asked him, "How do we know what is true? Tell me, yogi, how do we know when something is true?" The youth answered, "Well, maybe because the way something looks and the way it is are the same, or the thing does what it's supposed to do." She nodded her head in response, and then shot him the question, how did Matseyendra know what the master taught to him was true? How could he possibly know the master was trustworthy? After a moment, the youth answered, "I guess what the master taught him must have worked to stop his pain." Watching his teacher's face, the student felt this radiance in her smile, warming his heart. He knew he must have been correct. "Take the twist on the other side," she commanded. "Break time is over." We have one more metaphor to explore. The yogi smiled and folded himself as he was told in the opposite direction. "Tell me, yogi," she demanded once he had settled into his pose. "Exactly what is your state of mind right now? How do you feel? How is your breath?" The yogi looked inward and then spoke. "Well, my state of mind is calm and peaceful and focused. My breath is smooth and slow. I feel contented." Then she said, Now compare this moment to the moment before you decided to distract me from this morning's class." He reflected a moment and then responded, "Well, I'm right now twisted up like a pretzel, but my mind is as happy as it was when I stood in the sunshine and looked across the valley." "Good, then let's investigate the meaning of the unmoving whale. What do you think Matseyendra might have been practicing?" The youth responded, "Well, meditation maybe? Maybe, I think, the young yogi." "You might be right," she said. "The story tells us the whale, the physical body, was still, and we were told that Matseyendra was pleased with the stability and the stillness." consider again how you feel right now. Feel the comfort and serenity of your body and mind. Now imagine holding this asana for hours in comfort and stillness. What has happened to your body and mind since we began our practice this morning? At first, the youth reflected, "Well, I was flooded with a desire to enjoy the morning, and I thought that the enjoyment was coming from those outer things. And I wanted to keep them by distracting you from our class. Then when I couldn't distract you, I felt angry. I blamed you for the discomfort I felt in the pose. And just as the warmth and the other sensations were not the cause of my happiness and comfort, you could not be the cause of my discomfort. So maybe the stillness of the whale is a metaphor for shamatha and a metaphor for the stillness of the inner winds at that time. When the winds in mind are still, then vipassana is possible." She responded with a great big grin. "Perfect, Yogi. May I suggest one more idea about the whale? Suppose we take the whale as a metaphor for our practice. The concept of ekagra, one-pointed mind, together with stability and comfort. When we achieve this in the pose, we can focus just as you did a moment ago, as you reflected on the causes of your happiness. Maybe when we bring this practiced ease and focus into our life, and similarly our life into our practice as you just did, then we are surrounded by a giant whale shield. That's pretty cool." Now she said, "Unwind and take the final twist on the opposite side." Let's look at the powerful vitalizing effects of Matseyendra on a physical level. When we enter a place of ease and stability in the pose, feel how the posture compresses your abdomen. On this side, it's compressing the ascending colon, increasing the blood flow to this area. We help the body absorb essential vitamins like K, B1, B2, and B12. The digestive organs, the pancreas, the liver, the spleen, the kidneys, and stomach, and the descending colon all receive the benefits of this compression. So it's easy to see how Matseyendra stimulates the digestive fire and revitalizes or refreshes the digestive organs. It's used to help diabetes, constipation, stomach pain, and urinary problems. It realigns and readjusts the vertebral column. It tones the nerves. It relieves the tension of the back muscles by pulling and stretching them in different directions. As a result, we strengthen the lower back and have greater mobility in the sacrum. Now, what about its energetic effects? What does this pose do to the inner wings? In the same region, the samana vayu works to assimilate the nutrients and prana from the food that we take in. Below the samana, the apana works to eliminate what the body doesn't want or what is harmful to the body. Above the samana, the prana vayu absorbs prana into the body. Prana and apana are two opposing forces, And one of the aims of this yoga is to move them towards each other so they can meet in the navel and connect the samana. When these two opposite energies are brought together in the Manipura chakra, there is an explosion of energy. Observing her student's posture, the teacher asked the yogi, "How is your breath?" The yogi admitted he had hardly noticed it. He was so at ease in the pose right now. "Ah, you're ready," then she said. She directed him then to imagine the breath was flowing out and back in through the Ajna chakra. Keep your focus here at the spot between your eyebrows and about 1.5 inches inwards. You'll stay here a while, drawing the energy upwards. As you focus here, imagine a pure silver white color, the color of the inner wind, the Vijnana wind. Now associate those wise insights that you just had about contentment and happiness here as you breathe. Review them, analyze them again, and whisper to yourself, there was no happiness in that sunshine, no happiness in the sights and sounds and smells. It was not coming from me. There was no happy me and no not happy me coming from me. Good, she said. This is the inspiration of the practice of Matseyendra. Consider the silvery white light his inspiration. And if you continue this way, young yogi, you will be able to morph your appearance. It is just as Matseyendra did. You can take on whatever appearance you want to help others. Now, never forget, we swim in an ocean of living beings trapped in a cycle of pain. Today, you have the appearance of a youthful yogi, but there may come a day when you need to appear as a successful business person, a master, a teacher, to meet all the needs of those you see here in this ocean. Now, to gain this capacity, yogi, you must practice attaining the wisdom of appearances. Continue to challenge your core misunderstanding, the destructive view that I am me and I am mine. To put it another way, in the pleasurable first moments of your day, you believed, I am this happy person because of the warmth and all the other sensations. The I amness didn't appear as something made up. It didn't appear as a construct overlaid onto parts like chocolate sauce covering a scoop of ice cream. It didn't appear as though you were merely a forced projection onto parts, did it? Part of the forced projection is the mind, the objects, me experiences. The parts include anything that the me sees, hears, smells, tastes, and touches. In essence, it's our whole world. We are all swimming in this misunderstanding. So take that pain that you felt, the rage that you projected towards me, bring it back up. Now think, I would love to remove it from the hearts of all living beings. Keep breathing and focusing at the Ajna chakra. Silence filled the garden as yogi and teacher focused on breathing. The moment she said you can release the pose, the yogi caught a pang of sorrow arise. He didn't want the experience to end. He remembers, but I just learned The experience isn't in the pose, my teacher, the garden, the beauty of the blue sky. It all comes from me. Yes, she said, as if reading his thoughts. This core misunderstanding triggers every other misunderstanding and negative emotion there is. The misunderstanding can be destroyed by understanding that the world is a projection, a mirror of our past thoughts, words, and deeds. When we understand this, we destroy the viewpoint of destruction, and we destroy our very own death. We work with the wisdom that says, the world is a mirror of my seeds, and we become a master of appearances, just like Matseyendra. So repeat to yourself, I know the world is a mirror of my seeds, and I am a master of appearances, just like Matseyendra.